Hello everyone. In this video, let us discuss about carbon. This is an introduction to carbon and its compounds chapter, where we will be studying about the reactivity and different kinds of products that carbon is forming, and also the different allotropes of carbon in detail in this, or in brief in this chapter. So coming to the introduction to this topic, carbon. We are all familiar about this carbon element, carbon. Since the prehistoric era, prehistoric ages, man knows about this carbon in the form of coal, right? Actually, the word carbon is derived from Latin name, which means Latin word. This is actually a Latin word. Carbo means coal. Carbo means what? Coal. So to say that it is coal, this word carbo it will be used. So from that word, this name carbon is derived. But Anthony Lavoisier, father of chemistry, he has first recognized this carbon as an element. This was recognized as an element by Anthony Lavoisier. We only know that carbon in the form of coal in the prehistoric era, and since many years, man know about carbon in the form of coal. He don't know that it is an element, it has specific properties. But Anthony Lavoisier has recognized that as a element in around 1700s. In 1759, he has recognized it. Anthony Lavoisier. He has recognized this as an element. If you look at the carbon in the periodic table, the position of carbon in the periodic table, coming to its position in periodic table, carbon atomic number, it is, atomic number of carbon is what? 6, and its atomic mass or atomic weight is 12, and it belongs to second period and fourth A group element or 14th group element. Carbon belongs to second period and 14th group, or we also call that as fourth A group, the carbon family, or simply that group is known as what? Carbon family. Right, coming to carbon. Carbon is a solid. In the room temperature, you know that carbon generally exists as a solid, and it has a hexagonal shape. It has a hexagonal shape. We have seen about this in our previous videos about face-centered cubic crystal, body-centered, like that. In that way, this carbon will be exhibiting hexagonal shape, and this is a solid. Generally at room temperature, it exists as a solid, and it has an ability to exist in different forms. That means we call that as allotropy. Carbon will be existing in the form of graphite. Carbon will be existing in the form of diamond. So in this way, carbon has an ability to exist in different physical states. That property is called allotropy. We will study about this property in detail in our coming videos. Next, electronic configuration is 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. The electronic configuration of carbon is what? 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. And if you look at this, to attain the octet configuration, carbon either it can lose or it can gain. See here, with 4 valence electrons. How many valence electrons are there here? 4 valence electrons. To attain octet, that is 8 electrons, either it should gain 4 electrons, or in order to attain stability, it can also do one more thing. That is, it can lose its 4 electrons and it can convert into helium configuration, isn't it? Here 1s2 is what? The configuration of stable helium gas. So it can lose these 4 electrons out of the 6 Out of the 6, it can lose 4 electrons and it can get converted into helium's configuration, or by gaining 4 electrons it can obtain octet, that is with 10 electrons, neon configuration. So here it has a it can lose electrons or it can gain electrons. See what happens if it loses and if it gains electrons. See here, carbon with 4 valence electrons gaining 4. If you assume that carbon has gained 4 electrons, now what happens? The number of protons will be 6 in number. See, by gaining electrons, protons number doesn't changes. So if you look at carbon, it is having 6 protons and 6 electrons. By gaining 4 electrons, it will be having how many? 10 electrons totally, and the proton will be remaining, number of protons will be remaining as it is, 6 protons. So these 6 protons can't handle or can't hold the 10 electrons. The energy will not be sufficient to hold 10 electrons by the nucleus. So it is not possible to gain electrons. So therefore it doesn't prefer, it will be very unstable in its C-4 state. Right? And if we assume that carbon has lost electrons with 6 protons, 6 electrons, assume that it has lost 4 electrons to leave 2 electrons. See, you know that losing electrons means we need to provide energy and we need to remove the electron, right? So if you remove the first electron, it's okay, because atom in its neutral state, removal of electron will not affect much. So by losing 1 electron, it will be converting into a cation with more nuclear charge. So the removal of second electron, removal of third electron will further increase its nuclear charge, which will become very difficult. We need to provide huge amount of energy. So therefore it is not even possible to convert this into C+4 state. So therefore carbon doesn't exist in the form of ions. It can't exist because in these stages this is very unstable. This is very unstable and it doesn't exist in this +4 state, and in order to gain the electrons also it is very difficult and it is almost impossible. So therefore it is not possible for carbon to exist in the form of ions. Then how carbon is going to exhibit bonding? Carbon, you know that it shows covalent nature, covalent bond. By sharing the electrons, carbon can bond with other elements, atoms, and it can exist in different compounds. So carbon mostly it shows which kind of bonding? Covalent bonds. Carbon shows which kind of bonds? Carbon shows covalent bonds. Most of the chemistry of carbon will be with covalent bonds, right? See, if you look at the carbon, there is a lot of importance in knowing about carbon, and everyone should know about carbon before learning about the advanced materials at which we are using nowadays. Why? Because in order to use or in order to make advancements in the material science, we need to know about the basics regarding the materials from which they are prepared. So whatever the most of the materials around us, starting from the cloths, starting from this pen, from this ink, from the paper, the food we eat, the drugs we take, most of these are made up of carbon. The wood we use in the form of furniture, mostly all these, the steel which we use in the construction of buildings, in the construction of houses, all these are having carbon in them. So there is a need to know about carbon and its basic concepts to understand and to understand the advanced materials and to prepare or to make advanced materials in your coming futures. So therefore we need to study about this carbon and its compounds.